Hello guys, Aussie Legend here. It's that time of the year again where most gaming outlets have their token Game of the Year awards, and just because I have no original ideas of my own, I thought I'd follow suit and talk about my favourite games of 2012. Now, 2012 has been a bit of an odd year. I mean, there's been a lot of disappointing AAA games, but there's been a lot of really good downloadable and indie games this year. So this list is actually a little bit harder to make than it usually is, because there's not a set defined, oh, these are the 5 best games of 2012. So I'm going to run down my favourite 5, and let's see if they're on your list as well. So here we go. Starting off with one of those games that didn't disappoint and was AAA is Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 kicks all kinds of ass. Although, let's be honest, the gameplay hasn't changed a whole lot between the first 2 games. Yeah, there's 4 new characters. Well, okay, technically, there's another siren, but with more crazy combos. The gameplay in Borderlands 2 retains what made the original so great, but iterates upon it with new weapon combinations, new weapon manufacturers, new action skills, and even some new status effects for some badass gun shooting action. The game is freaking huge this time around, with a lot more varied terrain than the first game, from the Arctic tundra of Liesberg, to the toxic bowels of Pandora in the Caustic Caverns, to the bustling future metropolis of opportunity. Borderlands 2 is funny. Damn funny. The writing is stellar in this game, and whilst it may have a kind of weak source story, it more than makes up for it with its characters. From newcomers Tiny Tina, Handsome Jack, Sir Hammerlock, Captain Scarlet, and my personal favourite Mr. Torg, to the returning cast from the first game like Mad Moxie, Scooter, and the original Vault Hunters from the first game as well. Oh, and Claptrap. There's a lot of Claptrap. Whilst the humour in the game might not be the most sophisticated in the world,
talking about dicks, blowjobs,
it is fantastically written and is just really enjoyable to play and listen to and just mess around. That's what Borderlands is about. It's about having fun with a lot of guns, explosions, and dick jokes. And that's totally okay with me. That's what Borderlands 2 does fantastically. The game is just full of awesome content, and it's fun. It's the best co-op of the year, easily. I wholeheartedly love Borderlands 2, and I wholeheartedly recommend you give it a shot.
do you feel like a hero yet?
This may come as a bit of a surprise to some, as this game wasn't that well reviewed by Metacritic, but who gives a fuck about Metacritic? Spec Ops: The Line is probably one of my favourite shooters of all time. Not for the satisfying shooting mechanics, the gruff, bald, war-hardened space marine protagonist we normally get in first-person shooters, but for the fact that Spec Ops is basically the opposite of that. The game is actually a bit anti-violent, and it downright judges you, and it challenges your preconceived ideas of what military shooters have been over the last 5 years. The story in this game is freaking awesome, and had it not been for my number 1, it would have been the best story of the year by far. The game starts off like, well, a crappy shooter with what seems to be a fairly straightforward plot. A squad of Delta Force operatives are sent into a shattered city of Dubai after a massive sandstorm to search for survivors. Simple enough. By the end of the game, it's turned into something much more complicated and frankly pretty fucked up. You see some serious shit in this game, and it's not always pleasant. Which is one of the things I actually love about the game. It's actually a true horror of war story, unlike most games which are like, I'm gonna shoot all the things. I'm trying hard not to spoil anything, as the plot twists in this game are fucking awesome, but let's just say Walker goes through a lot of shit, not physically, but psychologically. You're meant to feel disconnected and this ludic dissonance from Walker, and it's this disconnection which makes you feel uneasy while playing the game, and it's rather brilliant how they actually pull this off. On top of the actual plot, so to speak, it also has this sort of meta plot, if you will, the premise of which is a commentary on the power fantasy that most games typically use as a crutch to motivate the player without really needing to explain why. Spec Ops challenges you on many levels, and I'm not talking anything game related, I'm not talking about difficulty, I'm talking about moral quandaries. Why are you following these orders? Just because you were told to? Have you ever stopped to think of what you're actually doing? At one point in the game, you go into a city to rescue a bunch of unarmed civilians and you actually end up killing all of them yourself. Is that your fault? Or were you just following orders? How many did you just blindly kill because the game told you to? Just because it was the game? Why are you okay with this? It's these kind of questions that the game poses to you, and actually the whole game's designed to make you feel pretty bad and pretty depressed, and it's wonderful. Now, some may argue that the story is a little meta and pretentious, and I can see where they're coming from, but I think it's brilliantly presented, and it's not too preachy in its message. If you're not paying attention, you can miss a whole section of the plot, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of stuff is symbolic and left open to your own interpretation. The game also had some shitty multiplayer, but do you really give a fuck? I don't give a fuck. It's a great single-player experience, and some shitty tacked-on multiplayer, which the developers didn't even want, isn't going to spoil that. As far as I'm concerned, Spec Ops: The Line is a must-play, and if you're ever going to ignore review scores, now's the time.
Good luck.
Don't you just love when old games come back and don't turn into crappy shooters? And they kick ass? Well, that pretty much describes a reboot of XCOM this year, known as XCOM Enemy Unknown. In XCOM, you set up a team of elite soldiers to protect the Earth from an impending alien invasion. The game is a turn-based strategy game, very similar to that of Advance Wars or Fire Emblem, two series which I personally loved and have played for a very long time. The gameplay consists of you ordering your troops around about a level, in an isometric view taking cover and eliminating all the enemy aliens and or completing objectives set by the Council. The Council is the rather mysterious group that are the suits behind the XCOM project, which collect funds from around the world in exchange for giving them protection against the force of the evil aliens. I love the gameplay in this game. It's super fun, and it takes a good deal of strategy to make it out alive with all your dudes, or dudettes, in one piece. A word of warning though, this game is difficult, like really difficult, so expect this game to make you its bitch on an embarrassingly frequent basis. Couple that with the Iron Man mode, which saves after you make every move, making dashboarding and restarting a non-option, and permadeath for every member of your squad, and you've got a recipe for some serious butt clenching. This game does tension really well, although honestly not quite as good as the original, but it's still very good. You may be searching an area being so careful not to make one wrong move, and all of a sudden a chrysalid is picking bits of your best soldier out of its teeth. This game does not like you, and it will kill people. Often. This game is a game for smart people and basically doesn't hold your hand at all. And I love that about it. I mean, I must say the game is a little cheap at times. I mean, you could have an 80% shot chance miss and just 2 seconds later you're getting headshotted from 3,000 feet away, taking critical damage to a guy who had 2 chances of hitting you, but that's half the fun. On top of the combat sections, there is a large emphasis on base and resource management. Whereas the original game had micromanaging to the point of a spreadsheet clusterfuck, Enemy Unknown streamlines this experience. It doesn't dumb it down, however, so it just allows you to more easily see how the decisions you are making affect the project. You can research how the aliens behave in battle, as well as new equipment, weapons and armor to better equip you in the struggle to stave off the full-blown alien invasion. You can even improve your own base by digging into the ground. This allows you to build foundries to help you in the aid of invention of new technologies, alien containment pods to hold captured aliens for interrogation, power generators to supply more power to the facility, as well as training schools to aid in the development of rookie soldiers that you might have to rely on considering most of you guys are going to die. Keeping your nation's funding of the XCOM project is essential to your success as, you know, they're the ones paying for everything. Putting up satellites over the countries, as well as providing air support to fend off UFOs, is an important part of providing the necessary protection to each of the countries involved. This game is engaging, both on a gameplay level as well as an intellectual one, and that's something that's pretty rare in games these days. I've had so much fun with my time in XCOM so far that I plan to continue playing this game for a fairly long time, and you should too. Okay, Journey. I mean, this is tough. I believe it's up to your own opinion on whether you call Journey a game per se. As a game, it's a functioning, if simplistic, open-world adventure game with minimalistic gameplay and a fantastic art style and soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack for this game is... ugh. But Journey is one of these games I prefer to call an experience rather than a game, for lack of a less shitty name. A game where the gameplay is not its true focal point or its purpose. Journey is a more existential, almost spiritual experience that challenges you on an intellectual level rather than a kinesthetic one. Journey is one of those games that is very hard to actually put into words. I mean, chances are if you haven't played the game, you're probably scratching your head as to why it's on here, but if you've played the game, you know exactly why. Which kind of puts me in an awkward position considering I have to try and justify it, but Journey is one of the most perfect game experiences, if that's even a word, that I've had in a very long time, if ever. One that does exactly what it's designed for, almost flawlessly and without peer. For the hour and a half to 2 hours it takes to beat the game, you're completely engaged, completely engrossed, and completely taken aback by the whole thing. Or at least I was. I'm not going to talk about the game in too much detail as I wouldn't want to spoil the experience for anyone else that hasn't played the game yet. Like, for instance, how the game is a greater metaphor for the trials and tribulations of life itself, or one's journey, through our existence all the way from our inception to our eventual catharsis. Journey is a once-in-a-lifetime game, and please know that it's absolutely and unquestionably worth your time, especially at a ludicrously small price of $15. I mean, go play it now. I'll wait. Go on.
Clementine? Clementine!
Oh, Walking Dead. How you've kicked me in the balls. The emotional balls, that is. The Walking Dead, the game, as awkward title as that is to say, is one of my favourite games of all time without question. And I'm maybe jumping a little bit ahead, but let me explain why. The Walking Dead is a video game adapted from the popular comic book series, funnily enough, also called The Walking Dead. The game is a sort of point-and-click / adventure / RPG / crying simulator. You spend most of your time conversing with the other survivors, building relationships and solving problems, as well as some combat sequences in the form of situation-sensitive QuickTime events. The best part of The Walking Dead is the character development and writing, both of which are unmatched in 2012 by far, and I honestly struggle to think of any games that do it better. You play Lee Everett, a man with a questionable past, who comes into contact with a cast of amazingly well written and fantastically voice acted bunch of characters who have to work together to try and survive out the zombie apocalypse. There is not a bad character in this game. Kenny, Carly, Ben, Chuck, Molly, even Larry, who I wanted to punch in the face every time he opened his fucking mouth. I of course haven't mentioned the most important character and arguably the main character of the game, Clementine. I can honestly say that Clementine is the first child character in any work of fiction that I've ever legitimately cared about. I cared, guys. Damn it, I cared about what happened to that little girl. Typically, children tend to be either used to raise stakes or as a source of conflict, but seeing Clementine grow from such an innocent, naive little child to the courageous young woman she is by the end of the game is such an absolute pleasure to experience. It's that relationship between the player, Lee, and Clementine, as well as the other characters obviously, that form the backbone of the experience and why it works so incredibly well. The game is set up episodically. Once you finish one episode, you move on to the next. In total, there are 5 episodes, and whilst the first episode in my opinion is the weakest of the bunch, it does a great job of framing the characters and setting the tone for the rest of the episodes. The game just gets better and better as you progress until you get to the end, and damn, that ending doesn't disappoint. One of the main mechanics and focuses on the game is forcing you into difficult situations and decisions. Decisions where there is no good outcome, only pros and cons to each. And as the player, you have to weigh up these options and make the best possible decision you can. This is not pleasant stuff I'm talking about here, and these choices are anything but clear cut. And this game, similar to how Spec Ops is, leaves you feeling both fulfilled, satisfied, and just a little bit depressed by the end of it. Oh, and tears. There's lots of tears. In this respect, the game is fan-bloody-tastic. Once again, I'm staying away from spoilers and specifics, but if you're one of these people who are tired of shitty zombie games, this is the game that you need to play. Yes, technically The Walking Dead is a zombie game, but it's the interaction and the relationships you build between the characters which is the real focus of the game. I could praise this game all day if given the chance, I really could. I'm not saying the game is flawless because it's not. I mean, I would have liked if the choices you make in the game actually branch out a little bit more than they actually do, but it gets so many things right that it's scary. If you haven't noticed yet, I really like this game. The Walking Dead Season 1 is unquestionably my favourite game of the year, just because it was the only one to make me cry, honestly. I put that above any kill streak or any shitty turret section. It made me care. And for that, The Walking Dead thoroughly deserves its spot atop this list. Bring on Season 2 in 2013. Feel free to leave a comment below on what your favourite game of 2012 is. Goodbye.